in verse 32, he says, what more shall I say? Because time would fail me to tell all those people. And then he begins to talk of Gideon, of Barak, of Samson, of Jephthah, of David. Yes, David comes here, and Samuel, and all of the prophets. So he can't even list all the prophets, but then he goes on in verse 33. All these men from those Old Testament ages, all these men through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, and turned to flight the armies of the aliens. Now, just look at this. Just look at this. This is what's happening. Through faith, they subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, and turned to flight the armies of the aliens. And in verse 35, women received their dead raised to life. Now, this is what Paul is talking about, faith. Faith is this powerful. You know, I hear preachers talking about faith, but faith is not just something ethereal, it's not just something mental, it's not just something in your head. Faith is the life that you live. I hope that I'll be counted amongst this number, because by faith I was healed twice from major cancer. By faith, I became the first person to cross by land all the way by car from England into Jerusalem in 1961. Yes, I was honored on television, but I did it by faith. By faith, I evangelized in the Soviet Union for 30 years under communism. By faith, I took 400 people to Siberia for 3 months. Oh, yes. It goes on and on. We're expected to live like that today. And by God's grace, I do, because the Lord said to me, God said to me, don't tell other people to do it unless you're prepared to do it yourself. And I'm doing it. I've been doing it all my life. And age 91, I'm doing it more. That's why I'm working in Central Asia. So you can see what it really means that they did all of this. They didn't accept deliverance so that they could obtain a better resurrection. And it goes on in verse 36. And others had trial of cruel mockings, scourgings, bonds, imprisonment. Oh yes, I was in prison also. I know what it's like. They were stoned, they were sawn asunder, tempted, slain with the sword, wandered in sheepskins, destitute, afflicted, tormented. Verse 38 sums it up so beautifully. The world wasn't worthy of these men and women. It wasn't worthy. They wandered in deserts, in mountains, in dens, in caves. And yet, in verse 39, it's clear, all of these, having obtained a good report through faith, didn't receive the promise. What is the promise? The promise is eternal life in God's kingdom. The promise is not something temporal down here. It's something positive. That's why the Bible and Paul are talking about cities. They're talking about something tangible. Look, heaven, I'm trying to emphasize this, heaven is not just a theory. Heaven is something so practical that it's worth giving your life to be able to get there. And verse 39, all of these that we've mentioned obtained a good report through faith. They didn't receive the promise. God had provided something better for us, that we should join them. We've got to be the same. Here it's telling us we've got to be the same and live like that. And that leads us into the first verse of chapter 12, and I have to finish on this. Seeing we are encompassed about with such a great cloud of witnesses. You know, everything that's gone on, they are the witnesses. All these people in the Bible are the witnesses. I'm the witness. That's why I can preach. And that's why I've got so much power now at my age, because I am the living witness of the truth of what God says. We are compassed about with a great cloud of witnesses. So let us lay aside every weight and the sin which also hinders us, and run with patience the race that's set before us, looking unto Jesus. Oh, let me just encourage you. If all these men and women died without actually seeing the fulfillment of the promise, let us not be concerned if we don't see the fulfillment of the promise in our lives. We live by faith. And that's why I come back to that verse 6 in Hebrews 11. Without faith, it's impossible to please God and to believe that He is the rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. Let me just remind you of the promise that is ours, that we will live and reign with Christ in that eternal kingdom when Christ comes back and rules the world for 1,000 years. Those of us who live by faith now will live and rejoice and rule with Him. This is what faith is about. Faith, as it says in Hebrews, is substance and evidence. I have, by faith, the substance and the evidence. And that's what I declare to you. God bless you. Thank you for listening.